As a constitutional law attorney, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Good evening and welcome to SNC Tonight. I'm Jenna Ellis. And if you are one of the tens of thousands of Americans that woke up this morning without cell service, you might have been an AT&T customer, even though reports from Fox Business and other sources have suggested that Verizon and T-Mobile customers were also affected by the outages. It started at about 3:30 a.m. Eastern time this morning and has continued well into the day. Users are wondering exactly what has gone on. Was this something that was due to just a new iOS system update on iPhones, even though Androids were also affected? Or was this something potentially more nefarious? Senator Marco Rubio tweeted this earlier today. He said, "I don't know the cause of the AT&T outage, but I do know that it will be 100 times worse when China launches a cyber attack on America on the eve of a Taiwan invasion. And it won't just be cell service they hit, it will be your power, your water, and your bank." So this really is concerning to a lot of Americans that are seeing that even though this potentially could have been a soft grid attack, it could be something like the Chinese spy balloon that was just a test balloon for something more nefarious. But what's going on with the U.S. power grid, and why isn't Congress paying attention to all of these issues? And certainly the Biden administration, I don't trust them at all to be remotely concerned about what is going on with the power grid. I had the opportunity earlier last year to interview David Tice on my podcast, The Jenna Ellis Show, and he had a new documentary that's now been out for about a year called Grid Down, Power Up that talks about the 4 cybersecurity risks that America is the most vulnerable to. Watch this.
Okay, so I can lay out the 4 different risks we talk about in the film. One is a physical attack. The second one is an electromagnetic pulse attack, which is essentially a nuclear blast in the atmosphere that can create a gamma waves that will knock out electronics and would knock out the transformers in our substations. Then the third is a geomagnetic disturbance or a coronal mass ejection, which is essentially a natural EMP coming from the sun. And then the fourth attack could be a cyber attack. Now, 3 of those attacks could come from state actors. The physical attack could really come from a terrorist group. And then the geomagnetic disturbance obviously comes from a natural occurrence. But our scientists have told us it's only a matter of when, not if, it is going to occur.
So what is the Biden administration or even Republicans on Capitol Hill doing about this? I love that Marco Rubio tweeted about it, but well-worded and strong-worded tweets and strongly worded letters really aren't going to protect Americans from the threat of cybersecurity risks. And we're also seeing how the Biden administration push for DEI in airlines and all of the businesses, and even including schools, are leading to a lot of other security and safety risks. A Boeing high-level CEO had to recently step down after the Alaska Airlines door failed on that Boeing airplane. And yet no one is doing anything about the DEI push and the safety and security risk it poses to Americans on airplanes. So what's going on? Is this really about the Biden administration just derelicting their duty and turning a blind eye? Is this about Republicans on Capitol Hill merely looking at other things and wanting to fund Ukraine and Israel rather than actually taking some of those offsets and maybe instead of putting that money into Ukraine, they actually do something that protects American security, like our Texas border, but also the power grid. National security is a federal issue and should be something that, yes, state sovereignty has control over and can protect their own citizens. So I'm very thankful that as a resident of Florida, my governor, Ron DeSantis, is looking at the safety and security of Floridians. But the federal government should be obligated and is obligated under the Constitution to look at national security. Nothing is being done about this. When we look at this documentary, Grid Down, Power Up, which I highly recommend to all of the viewers, here we're looking at all of these cybersecurity risks that, as David Tice said, it's not if, but when. So what can we do potentially? Well, there's always stocking up, making sure that you have enough supplies for yourselves, your family, your pets, if you have any, making sure that you have some disaster preparedness. But what is the federal government doing? I would love to know the answer to that question. The AT&T cellular issue that affected tens of thousands of Americans today was uncomfortable. It was inconvenient. But at the same time, it suggested that we really are at risk for a national security threat that comes not just from electromagnetic pulses, that can come through cyber attacks, through cellular attacks, but also from nefarious actors. So we don't know exactly yet what has gone on with the cellular outages that happened throughout the course of today. But I think it is a warning call to Americans, and especially Republicans on Capitol Hill, that you need to not just issue strongly worded letters. You need to make sure that you're actually doing something about it. Why don't we actually secure the power grid while we still have time? That documentary that I mentioned goes into detail about how we can secure our power grids. And this isn't something that we just have to wait until after the fact and see how other foreign agents and terrorists can come into America and try to attack us through cybersecurity, through our banks, through our power grids, all of these things, and now into potentially the airline consumer business that is now perpetuating fear through the media, and also through looking at how all of this is coming together from the progressive left to try to suppress the economy in America, but also to look at what are we doing in terms of acting ahead of time for our national security. I don't trust the Biden administration, but I also really don't trust the majority of Republicans on Capitol Hill. They are looking at impeaching Secretary Mayorkas. What is that going to do? I've said for weeks now that this is something that is just a PR stunt that really isn't going to have any practical effect on the border or our national security from the infiltration and the invasion at the border. Has anyone in Congress even mentioned the power grid? Is anyone suggesting anything that happened after the AT&T outage today? I haven't really seen anything. Other than, again, a couple of strongly worded tweets, but that's not really going to help national security. So Americans not only need to protect ourselves and our family, but we need to demand action from the federal government. We need to demand action from our state and local leaders as well. If you live in a red state, what is your governor doing about it? If you live in a blue state, your governor is probably not doing much about it. But we need to make sure that we protect national security so that when we have some of these things that are potentially looking at threats to the American power grid, that we make sure that we act before it is too late. We'll be right back with more here on SNC Tonight. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com, and use promo code Jenna, That's JENNA to get $10 off your purchase. Go to NewtGingrichSilverCoin.com now. Well, Veepstakes is coming up really rapidly since we allegedly have our two nominees for the GOP and the DNC party tickets, and that looks to be a repeat of Trump versus Biden. So as attention is being turned toward who is going to run on the presidential ticket with Donald Trump, Laura Ingraham asked him about that in a town hall earlier this week. Watch this.
View that
the audience has been asked who they think would be a good choice, and various names came up. One of them was, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy. Yeah. He's made a big splash. Ron DeSantis, who's making an appearance today in South Carolina, we just found out. Obviously, Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, and a big presence here for Tulsi Gabbard. Very interesting. And Kristi Noem as well, I should say. Right. Are they all on your short list? And when can you?
All right, let's bring in our power panel to discuss. We have John Cardillo, who is a former NYPD officer and GOP strategist. We have Robin Biro, who is a former Obama staffer and DNC strategist, a Democrat strategist. And we also have Tho Bishop, who is with the Mises Institute. So, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me today. And, John, let's start with you. So, Ron DeSantis pretty immediately said that he is out of the Veepstakes. He mentioned in a call that was not confidential, but was reported by some of the journalists that he just said he's not interested in the position. I think that's wise. He's the sitting governor of Florida. But since he's out, who do you think will be in?
I have no idea, but it didn't surprise me that DeSantis doesn't want the job. I mean, why would you give up the best governorship in America to join a campaign that has a, maybe slim chance of winning? I mean, Trump has a lot of problems right now. I think moderates and independents still are pulling away. And so it's anybody's game right now. Biden has his own cognitive problems. America's seeing that. Groceries are expensive. Gas is expensive. Hell, I have a diesel pickup, Jenna, and the price of gas in the last few weeks went up 30 cents a gallon for me. And so I think this race is a toss-up between Trump and Biden. But I certainly, if I'm Ron DeSantis, I'm not leaving to join a potential sinking ship when I'm on, the SS Luxury and Success down in Florida. That said, I have no idea. I mean, I personally still think Nikki Haley is in the running for VP because she can raise money. She outraised Trump in January. She has those massive mega donors. They're more than willing to give to her. And I think part of the reason Nikki Haley is still in this primary that she obviously can't win. I think the only reason she's still in this is they're testing how she does in South Carolina to see her viability as VP because she checks one box, money. And something Trump needs is money. I know people are talking about the Truth Social SPAC and him being worth $4 billion, maybe, right? But your stock is locked up and there are some hurdles to clear. So I think in terms of political fundraising, I think Nikki Haley is still very much alive in the VP contest.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. And let's go to Tho Bishop here. So, Nikki Haley has been lambasted by Donald Trump. He called her bird brain, but, he's called everybody pretty much who have been his rivals at one time, one form of nickname or another. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. So do you think John's right that she really isn't out of this? And what do we think of her fellow South Carolinian, Tim Scott?
Well, I think Nikki Haley would take in a heartbeat. I mean, she will debase herself for any scrap of power. Now, hopefully Trump will not go that direction. But I could see someone kind of similar to Nikki Haley, maybe like Joni Ernst, senator from Iowa. Someone like Elise Stefanik, who has played her cards very well in terms of racking up loyalty points with Trump, though as a member of fairly moderate of the voting record there. So those are the two that I kind of think are going to be your standard. We have to win over suburban women, try that outreach card. The person that was brought up that I find particularly interesting, though, is someone like a Tulsi Gabbard, because I think one of the interesting swing demographics, right, is that Joe Rogan voter, right? They're not particularly partisan. They have kind of a cynical view of the government writ large. An anti-corruption sort of push, I think, would speak to that crowd. And so if you, instead of trying to court, the Nikki Haley vote, if Trump is interested in trying to bring in, again, like that Joe Rogan group, something a little bit different there, Tulsi Gabbard, who lines very well in the foreign policy points if Trump wants to lean into that during the election cycle. She's someone who I think could actually broaden an appeal more than kind of a standard, let's pick some, Republican congresswoman from a state like New York. She's someone that I think would be very interesting. Unfortunately, I think someone like Ramaswamy would be, he's someone that would excite me. I think he's one of the few people that actually improved his standing during the presidential primary. But I have a feeling like you're not going to get someone who's going to compete with Trump on the stage in terms of that presence. I expect Ernst would be my least favorite of the group, but I think Stefanik and kind of make a play for New York would be probably where he would go.
Yeah, and I think the Tulsi Gabbard factor is really interesting, especially if she winds up on the ticket with RFK Jr. and to see that more broad appeal to the moderate base. And so will Trump go for money or broadening his base or maybe something else? But what about the Democrat ticket? So, Robin, let's get you to weigh in on this. Assuming that Joe Biden is the nominee, it doesn't look like he's dumping Kamala Harris anytime soon. But if Biden is replaced with someone like a Gavin Newsom, who would be his running mate and who should it be from the DNC side?
Oh, gosh. I can't even fathom, frankly, that Joe Biden would be replaced for the sole reason that right now his fourth quarter reporting shows that he's got $46 million sitting in the bank. And you know as well as any of the people here on this panel that it's all about money with these campaigns. And when he's sitting on a stockpile like that, he's not going anywhere. They would have to force him out, or frankly, he would have to die to be replaced. Now, if, for example, God forbid he did die, I think that Gavin Newsom would be first in line, and he would be fighting with Kamala Harris to try and go against Trump in the general election. And look, I am from South Carolina. Nikki Haley was my governor. I would love for her to be the nominee for the Republicans, but it's going to be Donald Trump. Well, I think you know this. And frankly, I'm just not that excited. Democrats aren't really that excited about a Biden-Trump matchup again. None of us really are. But I'll tell you, as an aside, for Donald Trump candidate I fear the most at VP would be Tulsi Gabbard. She's a veteran. She's smart as a whip. She's a former Democrat. She would get some moderate voters. She would get a lot of the male voters, some women voters. That one scares me to death, actually.
Yeah, well, it'll be very interesting to see Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris vie for that top position if indeed Joe Biden does have to step down. But we'll wait and see for the Veepstakes. We'll be right back with more of our power panel here on SNC Tonight. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream Sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. So as we head to November of 2024, after the border, the economy is the number one issue in exit polls for American voters. But the Biden administration continues to ignore the problem and suggesting this is really okay. Joe Biden, instead of doing the traditional Super Bowl interview that presidents do, instead put up this kind of bizarre video.
The Super Bowl Sunday. If you're anything like me, you like to be surrounded by a snack or two while watching the big game. You know, when buying snacks for the game, you might have noticed one thing. Sports drinks bottles are smaller. A bag of chips has fewer chips, but they're still charging it just as much. And as an ice cream lover, what makes me the most angry is that ice cream cartons have actually shrunk in size, but not in price. I've had enough of what they call shrinkflation. It's a ripoff. Some companies are trying to pull a fast one by shrinking the products little by little and hoping you won't notice. Give me a break. The American public is tired of being played for suckers. I'm calling on companies to put a stop to this. Let's make sure businesses do the right thing now.
Let's bring back in our power panel for today, John Cardillo, Robin Biro, and Tho Bishop. And Tho, let's start with you. So, this is the big company's fault, and Joe Biden is the do-gooder here saying, stop scamming Americans for our products. Is that really what's going on here?
Right. They're blaming corporate greed when the reality, this is an inflation mechanism, right? This is a response. And it's in some ways, it actually helps the Biden administration, right? Since so much of their talking points now are, they want to talk about jobs numbers that are inflated with temp jobs and government jobs, or inflation data that they take away, certain aspects like energy prices and things like that. Inflation rates would actually be much higher in this country if you didn't have shrinkflation going on. And again, this is just a response to higher prices, offering cheaper alternatives. It does suck. I mean, it's bad for consumers, but this is just part of a larger financial system right now where inflation is not under control. The Fed is already signaling that they're going to have to pause the projected rate cuts that so many are desperately wanting right now. And again, all of this goes to the much larger problems that there's a complete leadership deficit addressing things like our addiction to debt, money printing, and all of these things that have gone on way too long in this country.
And Robin, let's turn to you. What does Joe Biden have to do to convince the American people that what's actually happening in the economy really isn't as we move forward to 2024? I'm not convinced there are going to be any more presidential debates. I don't think that Joe Biden is going to want to confront Donald Trump or RFK Jr. on the debate stage, but certainly he's going to have to address the economy.
And what puzzles me, Jenna, is that they're running on Bidenomics, which I thought was a terrible idea to begin with. Only 24% of Americans that were polled in a Monmouth poll recently said that they felt optimistic about the economy for the next year ahead. That's pretty bad if you're a president running for re-election. And look, I've got to tell you, I was so embarrassed watching that video. I'm a Democrat, but I was so embarrassed watching that video of Joe Biden because it seemed to me like he was pop about ready to pull a Werther's out of his pocket and tell me to sit down and don't worry about the economy. He's got this. That's not the message that Americans need to be hearing right now. Sure, he can talk about shrinkflation all he wants. He can give us numbers about inflation coming down. In fact, for my career, I studied the economy, the U.S. economy and the local state economy. And sure, we've seen indicators that inflation is going down, but Americans in their homes, 24% of them, only 24% feel that things are going to get better. That shows a pretty dismal outlook for any president, frankly, running for re-election, because as was famously said once before, it's the economy, stupid.
Yeah, really, really well said. And Biden's approval ratings are absolutely abysmal. And John, this headline was from the Mises Institute. The Fed is preparing for a bank crisis while telling Americans the economy is strong. I don't think that anyone rationally can say that they're better off now than they were 4 years ago. Of course, pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, when the economy was artificially suppressed. But really, we all were better off under Trump.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's times like this, Robin's an old buddy, and it's times like this that I just feel bad he has to be a Democrat because he's such a pragmatic guy. And watching that, one comment on Biden, it's you can run this shrinkflation ruse all you want about the size of potato chip bags, but Americans know their gas tank in their vehicle hasn't gotten any bigger. And when they fill that car up, it's a lot more expensive to fill it up than it was under the Trump administration, than it was a few years ago, right? But to the bank crisis, I have a lot of friends who are pretty top-tier bankers, a couple of C-level guys. And, the bank's debt-to-revenue ratio is almost upside down. We're seeing these regional banks failing. We just had another one in New York, right? We saw Silicon Valley Bank failed. First Republic out in California is having problems, a big bank that was a private bank for high net worth individuals. Now, the media is downplaying that because they're typically in cahoots with the Democratic Party. But if you're paying attention and you're keeping tabs on these bank failures, it's terrifying. I do, because on the other side of my life, I work in private equity. And it's a pretty scary place to be when banks that were solvent and comfortably solvent only a few years ago are saying, hey, we got to call it quits. We simply don't have the liquidity to service the debt, service the customer, service the investment. I think it's only going to get worse. I absolutely agree. And I place a lot of this blame on the Fed. I mean, the Fed has basically given cover to the Dems while ignoring the broader problems. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, right? They're reaping what they sowed. And this is going to inflict, this is so horrible, this is going to inflict such pain on the American consumer, especially those people living check to check who rely on credit. Because what's going to happen is what happened during the banking crisis of 08-09. The banks are going to start lowering the credit lines. Small businesses are going to lose their credit lines because of a lack of liquidity from the banks. And then they're going to start going after individual credit cards. And then what happens, right? So say your credit card is racked up. You have a $10,000 limit, for argument's sake. You've got $9,000 on that card. Well, now the bank comes in and they say, okay, we can't afford to service you anymore. We're going to lower your limit to $6,000. Well, now your debt to credit ratio goes through the roof. You're taking a 120-point credit score hit. Everything you ever tried to do subsequent to that, your car loan, your refinance on your home, another credit card, your interest rates are going to be astronomical. This is going to hit the lower middle, and lower classes like nothing we've seen in decades.
So well said. And so just in the last 30 seconds or so, let's come back to you. What are Republicans even doing about this? I mean, it seems like there's not much emphasis on this on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, nothing is, Fed, even getting people to talk about the Federal Reserve in political circles is difficulty in its own right. They've been willing to, there's this myth of Fed independence, right? It's a non-political entity. The Fed has always been a political entity. It's been a political entity since its beginning. And there's no will on either side of the aisle to address these issues. They'd rather have. It's
really unfortunate, and we'll have to leave it there. But I feel bad for all of us being Democrats and Republicans in today's political circles. But we'll be right back with more here on SNC Tonight. Well, I had the opportunity earlier this week to interview my very dear friend, Penny Nance, who is the CEO and president of Concerned Women for America, on a topic very near and dear to our hearts. Watch this. So, Penny, this is an issue I know that is near and dear to your heart, and you were just at the rally for the DC-5, which are 5 little babies that are potentially victims of partial birth abortion. I think that people who are looking at the issue of abortion just really don't understand how heinous this is. So, moving into 2024, where should Republicans be on the issue of life?
Well, they certainly shouldn't run from it, right? I think, and I've had this discussion over years, that the consultant class, the advisor class, people who run campaigns often advise their candidates not to talk about abortion, to talk about, the pocketbook issues and health care, education, which all of those things are important. But we're talking about human life. This is an important issue. And the truth is, because when they hide from it, they always are panned as being extremist. When we know that the other side are the extremists, the other side, Joe Biden and his ilk, all believe abortion should be legal anytime, any reason, any number, no matter how late in pregnancy, all paid for by the taxpayer. That is their position. And so I always advise candidates to lean into the issue and talk about fetal development. President Trump was right to mention 16 weeks. At the 4-month level in pregnancy, any woman that has ever been pregnant or anyone that's ever studied it knows that a little baby girl has all her major organs, has eyebrows and fingernails, can hear and respond to her mother's voice and feel pain. We've all looked at their sonogram pictures. My children own their own sonograms. The vast majority of Americans oppose late-term abortion. We are talking at this point about protecting babies. We've overturned Roe. We're working on the state level. We're working to save as many babies as possible. We've got to bring people along with us. So at Concerned Women for America, we're doing several things. One thing we're doing is we're working with Congress, with Marco Rubio in the Senate, Diana Harshberger in the House, to require HHS to put all the alternatives online that a woman can access just using her zip code. It's very simple. There's $1 trillion a year that is available right now for women, and that doesn't even count all the private opportunities, health care and foster care and housing and legal help, all the many opportunities to support a woman, gives her the ability to say yes to her unborn baby and to protect human life. The other thing is we are working very hard to make sure that that these little babies, you just mentioned the DC-5, current law is not being supported. In the District of Columbia right now, we have remains of babies that were rescued by a progressive group, Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising. And they found 110 little babies as small as a dime, but you can still see their little hands and arms and legs. This was a human being, you can see by looking, and as old as babies that were almost full term. 5 of them appear to have either been born alive and died or been murdered through a partial birth abortion. You can see the remains. If you care to look, and if you're brave enough to look on our website, we have under our resources, we have actually the video that really takes on this issue, shows you the victims of abortion, so that if you're going to argue about the issue, if you're going to say you're pro-choice, you have to be able to defend what that choice is, and we need to make them defend it.
Absolutely. And we need to be speaking the truth about what abortion really is, which is a medical intervention intentionally designed to cause the death of a child. It's not just some, magical solution that doesn't harm anyone, that takes a woman from being pregnant to just not being pregnant anymore. And we can just, continue these solutions. The left does not want to show the heinousness of what abortion actually is. And I went on your website, Penny, and looked at this video, and I would challenge any of the listeners who are watching, if you are pro-choice, go and watch this video. And if you know someone who is pro-choice, encourage them to watch this video and to be confronted with the truth and the reality. And Penny, you said something about President Trump supporting a 16-week ban. A lot of pro-lifers say that doesn't go far enough, but at least let's start there. I mean, I think that we are so absolutist sometimes that it doesn't really make sense to say, well, at least start with 16 weeks or a heartbeat.
Right. And here's the reality. I live in this world, and you do too, Jenna. I know what it takes to pass a federal ban on abortion, and we're not there yet. Let's just be honest. But I think we can start where people agree. And I'm not suggesting that agreement's the goal. No, saving babies is the goal. But literally, my organization is paid to be strategic, and we are. And Our Ladies worked for 50 years to get the overturn of Roe. We're working in the states. Some states are more pro-life. A few of them are more pro-abortion. But because of the overturn of Roe, over 60,000 babies live today that would not have. We're winning when we actually are on equal footing and able to have the argument. We're working in every single state, but we're bringing every state as far as it can in order to protect life. In the federal government, you have to have 60 votes in the Senate in order for any piece of legislation like this to go to the floor. That's called cloture. And it's a heavy bar. We don't have that now. I hope to get more pro-life votes. We've got to have more pro-life votes in order to win. But let's start now by using this issue as strategically to educate people on what a little baby looks like at 16 weeks. She's a baby.
Yeah,
She's just got to grow a little bit bigger in order to survive outside the womb. But that doesn't make her not a baby.
Absolutely. And we know that life begins at conception, and every human being has inherent dignity and worth from natural conception all the way to natural death. And so, Penny, Nance, really appreciate your time. Let's continue to advance the pro-life movement. We'll be right back with more. So what is the GOP doing with their House majority? Well, not much. And according to a post-millennial headline that says this, we can go ahead and bring this up. George Santos creates a group chat with former New York GOP colleagues, calls them effing idiots for backing his expulsion after a Democrat wins his seat. Let's bring back in our power panel, John, Robin, and Tho. And Robin, I'm coming to you first on this one. I think that George Santos, love him or hate him, the guy's hilarious, but he kind of has a point.
Oh my gosh, doesn't he though? He is the gift that keeps on giving. Frankly, Democrats needed him to continue to serve in his position because it was great fodder for us. But look what has happened to the GOP. They lost this seat. George Santos is laughing his way all the way to the bank. But Jenna, I just love the fact that he is making hundreds of thousands of dollars on Cameo, doing private cameos for people. So you can't keep this man down.
Yeah, well, and he's apparently suing Jimmy Kimmel, for the late night comedian host, for misusing his cameo, which I'm not really sure that lawsuit is going to survive because, hey, if you can go in and ask him to say anything and he's willing to do that for a couple $100, then you can make some comedy out of it. But John, let's turn to you. So the Post-Millennial article also goes on to say that only one representative, Andrew Gabarino, texted back in this group chat saying, "Sorry, new phone, who dis?"
Listen, George said, you guys remember that Shaggy song, that old reggae song from the 90s, It Wasn't Me? Like, George Santos is the living embodiment of that song. He did all those things, but you didn't care and you sang along anyway. Look, the guy won a seat in Long Island that should have gone to a Democrat. It didn't. It stayed in the hands of Republicans. Menendez is arguably the most corrupt guy in Congress, a decades-long serving Democrat. He's untouchable. And Republicans stupidly turn on their own and oust Santos. I have no idea why. Then, not only do we oust Santos, we run the worst imaginable candidate, a woman who can barely speak English, against Tom Suozzi, a Democrat who held the seat. The guy was county executive in Nassau County. And as a Democrat, he was pretty beloved. The Republicans liked him as well. He was relatively moderate. He's a good-looking, polished guy who comes from money, who's made some money. He had the right donors. He had the right polish. We literally, the Republican Party, I always say this, Jenna, you and I have said this to each other how many times via phone and text over the years. We are the best at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. By ousting Santos, we gave this seat away. So look, whatever Santos did, he did. He didn't do things while he was a congressman, and certainly didn't do anything worse than Menendez did. And Dems don't even go near that guy, despite indictments and investigations. We gave this seat away, and we deserve everything we get. We gave that seat away.
Yeah, and it is just slimmed the majority, and you're absolutely right, John. And I think we are continuing to just say this repeatedly, kind of on group chat. I'm waiting for you to text me, new phone, who dis? Hopefully that won't be coming anytime soon. But
it's coming. It's coming.
Okay. Eventually, we're going to find something. But Tho, let's go to you. The GOP, now their majority is shrinking. They really aren't getting much done. And George Santos, while, there was some questionable conduct, there was the House investigation on ethics. He hasn't been charged criminally, at least while he was, when he was up for expulsion. And so as Marjorie Taylor Greene pointed out, this really wasn't worthy of expulsion, even though the Constitution does say that the House can govern and the membership, and they can, of course, expel their members, which they did in this case. But the GOP, I think, was just a little bit putting the cart before the horse here.
Right. This is the reason why Matt Gaetz, refers to Republicans in D.C. as being the Washington Generals. We set ourselves up to lose every single time. The Democrats, look at the insider trading of Nancy Pelosi and the performance of her assets, right, over her career, right? You elevate the biggest crooks in D.C. and they'll slap around someone like Santos, who's kind of like a comedic figure, right, to show that they have some sort of dignity. It's a joke all the way around. Again, this is an illustration of how national politics is operating, right? There's a complete lack of seriousness across the board. We deserve more legislators like George Santos. Like, that is a perfect embodiment of where we are as a country right now. And that's where the only good stuff that happens from the Republican Party is happening at the state level. right? There's no cohesive message in D.C. You're not going to fix these factions within an election cycle or two. It's going to continue to be the Washington Generals of federal politics. It's the state levels where you actually get serious legislators, serious things getting done, and that's a positive. That's a step in the right direction. But again, that's why anyone in D.C. acting all holier than thou when it comes to George Santos, while saying nothing about all the other crimes that are going on amongst the political class. Again, I've got no time for them.
Yeah, I mean, what's going on with why aren't we expelling Nancy Pelosi and Menendez and all of these other people for insider trading and some of these other corruption things that are clearly going on, but nobody seems to care about that. In the last about minute we have here, Robin Byral, I'll give you the last word here. Why are Democrats always protecting their own, but it seems like Republicans just can't get it together? Like, why can't our party be more like yours?
Isn't that the truth, though? We do. And I thought this was a grievous mistake when the Republican Party did throw George Santos under the bus. They lost a seat. They didn't really have a plan to retain that seat. And frankly, I miss George Santos because he gave us all the political fodder we needed here on the left. But Democrats, for better or worse, we just rally behind our own through thick and thin. And unfortunately, no matter how corrupt or how much I want them gone, believe me, Jenna, I went and voted. I voted. I will admit, I voted this week for Joe Biden, but I was not thrilled about it. I would love to see some fresh new blood for the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're not alone in that. And even my dog now, Todd and Copper, that are over here, they're chiming in now, and they're perfectly agreeing with you. I think we're all really frustrated with both states of the parties, even the puppies, who of course can't vote unless they're Democrat, of course. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining our power panel today. It's always great to see you on a Thursday, and we'll see you again soon. So that is all the time that we have for SNC tonight. I'm Jenna Ellis, and this show is going to be changing its title starting on Monday to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm very excited to be the permanent host of the 9 p.m. Eastern hour. And if you have been following my podcast, including Todd and Copper, you can follow them on Instagram at 2dudes, DOODS _Copper and Todd. You can see all of their cuteness on Instagram. But if you've been following my podcast at thejennaellisshow.com, this show will also become that podcast. So we're changing the format a little bit, and really grateful for all of you listeners and viewers at the Salem Media Group that have supported the show and have given me even an expanded platform to continue speaking the truth from a conservative perspective. So I'll see you Monday for Jenna Ellis Tonight.